Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast episode. Today, we're talking about fear. Talking about fear as a phenomena, as a part of our reality. And so, we're going to be speaking about the reality of fear and, in many ways, the unreality of fear, because fear is not as real as we make it to be. So when we talk about fear today, we're going to be talking about some of the ins and outs of fear, so to speak, and certain techniques and practices that you can implement in your life to navigate fear, to overcome fear, to take action despite fear. And so this is a topic that I find very fascinating. It's a topic that I enjoy speaking about and exploring. So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for exploring the inner landscape in this moment with me, of all the things you could be doing. So deeply appreciated. And if you don't know, my name is Robbie J. Bone. I am an intuitive healer and a spiritual mentor, and I support people upon their path. I help people create success in their life through living love. I help people to make a strong connection with the divine, with divinity, the creator, God, source. And that's what really lights me up, brings me so much joy to share that with others, because for so long in my life, I didn't have that. And what I had instead was what we're talking about today. I had fear. And fear comes and goes. It's not that I have no fear now. It's just I have the tools and capacity to navigate it with more grace and ease, and to not be controlled by it. So one of the natures of fear is that fear has a direct relationship with control, right? Fear, in its essence, grips us and tries to control us, right? And it drives people to then try to control the world around them, right? When you're in love, when you're living love, you're not trying to control people. You're not trying to control situations. You're not trying to control things or places, right? When you're living love, it's a path of surrender. It's a path of inspiration and influence. Very different, right? Influence inspires others. Influence is detached. It's not attachment. When we influence people, it's like when we walk into a room and our heart is open, right? And maybe even encountered this before, where you're in a really good mood, or you're around someone who's in a very good mood, and they light up the room, right, with their presence. And it can shift the whole space. It can shift the people. It can shift the energy indirectly, right? That's influence. We're all influencing. It can also go the other way. It can influence in a negative direction. If someone's angry or sad, their energy can change the whole room. So how do you want to influence the people in your life? What kind of influence do you want to have on the world? It's important to consider this. Because if you are operating with a fear program, what's your influence going to be in the world when that fear program is running? Right? Is it going to be beneficial? Probably not. The nature of fear is that it's kind of contagious. Like, we all went through this weird thing a few years ago, right? You probably remember. Everyone was wearing masks, and the world was shut down, and there was this highly contagious virus. Now, when I look at that time, the most dangerous, contagious virus that was going around, it was the virus of fear. So fear wants to propagate. Fear wants to multiply. So don't be a carrier of such a thing. Because love also wants to multiply. Love also wants to grow in abundance. I don't know if I'd use the word contagious because it's kind of got a negative connotation with love. That being said, it spreads in a good way. So fear wants to suck us into the story. Fear wants us to lose our senses. Fear drives people to be controlling. And fear tries to control us, controls our thoughts, our feelings, our words, our actions. It's quite amazing when you really look and consider this thing called fear and the apparent power it has. Yet, it really has no power. Because when you take the light of consciousness, when you take the light of your soul, and you deeply examine fear, what happens? What happens to that fear? From my experience, when you do this, and you do it long enough, 100% of the time, the fear will dissolve, dissipate, release, transmute, alchemize, shift, disappear. A similar way to talk about it, if you're in a dark room, okay, you can't see anything. That's like fear. Now, if you're in this dark room, what happens if you turn on a light? Or turn on a flashlight, right? What happens to the darkness? It ceases to exist. It doesn't coexist with this light. So fear and consciousness, fear and the light that your soul is, cannot coexist. Fear and love cannot coexist in the same space and time within that level of the system. Very, very good to know this, because love can be strong, powerful, intense, and it can also be subtle. Fear uses intimidation. Fear wants you to think it's bigger and more powerful than it actually is. So, very, very helpful to know this, because fear will never overpower love. Fear will never be stronger than consciousness. Fear will never be stronger than your soul. It's impossible. Just like the darkness can never outdark the light. It just doesn't work that way. The light always illuminates the darkness. Because what is darkness? The absence of light. What is fear? The absence of consciousness, the absence of soul, the absence of love. So within fear, there is a code. Within fear, there is an energy. And it's kind of an indirect energy, an indirect code. What I mean by this is fear is showing you where you have not yet found love. Fear is showing you where you have not yet found love. Fear is showing you where you have not yet brought the power of your soul and the power of consciousness into your being and into your conscious mind. Fear is like a part of your system holding up a flag, like a big red flag, saying, hey, look over here. We need your loving, conscious presence here, right? And what do we do when we see that big red flag? We often get afraid of it and we think, oh my God, this is horrible. I have to fight it, resist it, avoid it, deny it, or get lost in it. It's like, no, it's calling you here. Yet the knee-jerk reaction of most people is to avoid it, to resist it, to deny it, not to go into it. I know that used to be my pattern. It's like, I don't want to feel that. That's uncomfortable. I don't know how to feel that. I don't know how to navigate that. Sit with presence and consciousness long enough and it will dissolve. And focus on consciousness more than fear. Because where your attention goes, you feed. So one of the natures of fear is fixation. Fear takes control of the mind. It's kind of this interesting thing where fear will kind of take your mind and turn it in on itself. So your mind is now, so the fear has kind of like creeped up into your mind and has taken your mind and now taken that mind to then fixate upon the fear, right? And then with the mind fixating on the fear, it's like Miracle Grow. Okay, it's like what happens when you put Miracle Grow on your food or whatever, or your vegetables. Look, I'm not a gardener, so I don't actually know. I just have heard. And if I was a gardener, I would not be using Miracle Grow. I'd be using something more natural, like fish, dead fish or something like that. Great fertilizer. That's what I hear. So it's like putting dead fish on your fear. No, I'm just kidding. It's like Miracle Grow, okay? So it's like putting Miracle Grow on the fear when the mind fixates on it. And then the fear propagates and grows. And then it's this. So what this is there's an ancient symbol. You've probably seen it, heard of it. If not, look it up. It's the image of the snake eating its own tail. A never-ending cycle that you can't break out of it from that level of consciousness. Because the mind fixates on the fear. The mind then increases the amount of fear and feeds the fear and grows the fear. And then the fear has more control over the mind, which then feeds the fear, and so on and so forth. And it's this downward trend in consciousness and presence and energy levels in a negative way. Right? The snake represents bondage in this example. Being bonded, being in bondage, right? Being bound by fear. You need not be bound by fear. You can be free. You're designed to be free. Our Creator did not design us to be bound and stuck forever in fear and negativity and suffering and darkness. The Creator is good. The Creator is benevolent. The Creator is loving. The Creator gave you everything within yourself, everything you need to overcome everything and anything within yourself. Within every human being is the blueprint of total freedom and total liberation. Now, of course, we forget. So then that's why we need a podcast in our modern world. That's why we need books. That's why, and maybe need is not the right word. However, that's why it's extremely helpful and beneficial to have resources to help us remember that blueprint, to help us remember that original design. Right? And this is why there's always been teachers. There's always been mentors. There's also always been guides upon the path. It's very helpful. It's like, you could spend your whole life trying to navigate a path, Or you could go to the person that's navigated it and they could tell you all the ins and outs so you can navigate it much more swiftly and easily and know what to avoid and where to focus and where to go. And then you'll get to a new path and so on and so forth. So it speeds up the process in a way that is also empowering to you, where you're still having the experience of it, just not over a whole lifetime, maybe over a year. So all that being said, everything you need. The Creator gave you everything you need within yourself. Thank God for that, right? Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if the Creator didn't give you everything you needed? You had to go find it somewhere or buy it or something? Can't be bought, can't be sold. It's already in you. And it's called consciousness. It's called spirit. It's called soul. It's called higher self. It's called divinity. It's called love. Okay? Now, side note, right now I am having a beautiful bit of tea, pu'er tea. And I'm keeping these podcasts just real, authentic. I don't edit them. I just share stream of consciousness, present moment. So I'm about to open my Stanley. The Stanley has hot water in it. It might make a sound, so don't be spooked, okay? You hear that? That's the sound of tea. So I have a cute little teapot here with some lovely pu'er tea in it. So fear is pointing us in a direction, the direction we need to grow through. And this is the great irony, is so many people run from fear. But fear is showing you the direction you're meant to go. Within reason, like have common sense. If there's a time when sometimes fear is, it's not always like a linear process, right? So for example, here's a good example. Right now, I'm in the process of launching a new group. This group is called The Aligned Man. Little pitch for you guys. It's designed for men. And I've never done this before. It's based on the same teachings and principles that I've been sharing for a number of years now. So the content is not necessarily new. It has been refined. That being said, it's the first time I've offered it just to men. And it's a bit of an edge for me, especially because historically, I was looking through a lot of my old students and the lists that I've worked with in the past, and a lot of them have been females. So it hasn't always been like a strong male presence. That being said, the guidance was to work with men right now. So I'm following that. That's what the Spirit told me. So I'm following that. That's what my intuition told me. And part of it is because it's a growth edge for me, right? So one of the beautiful things about path and about the path is that, especially when you're upon the path of service, it's equally for others as it is for yourself. It's just as much for your own conscious evolution and growth and expansion as it is for the people that you are serving. And that's beautiful. That's reciprocity. That's balance. It's not selfish. It's great. It's like, as I grow, others grow. As others grow, I grow. That's the circle. It's great. And it's good as someone who teaches, if you're a teacher or a healer or someone who guides others, it's good to be humble and remember your students and clients are teaching you always, guaranteed. And if they're not, if you've stopped learning from them, then that needs to change. So all this being said, it's a new thing. It's a change. And, if you've ever been someone that's launched something, that started something, right? It's always a bit edgy. It's like, are people going to show up? Are people going to come? Or are they going to like it? Are they going to sign up? Is it going to be a failure? Is it going to be successful? And these thoughts are normal and natural, and they arise, right? These fears come up. So, excuse me, my tea is sharing with you guys as well. So, all that being said, I've been launching this group, and naturally part of the process is that fear has come up, right? And fear has arisen, and I've had to face it. I've had to look at it, acknowledge it. And we were talking that, like, the reason this is brought up, remember, because I'm a bit tangential, if you haven't noticed. My brother's wife is a doctor, and she said, there's a term for that medically. It's called being tangential. I said, oh, finally, a diagnosis. Thank God. Now I have certainty. I'm tangential. I've never looked it up. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I enjoy it. I hope you do as well. So that being said, if you can keep up with my mind as it's bouncing around, what I brought up was that fear is pointing you in a direction, and it's guiding you in a direction, right? So it's saying, most people, they experience fear and they back away. So in this sense, sometimes fear comes up as a redirection. Sometimes it shows up because it's meant to be on the path. So for example, if you're an alcoholic and you're afraid of getting drunk again, and you're afraid of alcohol because you know how much it can destroy your life, that fear is not necessarily saying, well, you should drink alcohol until you're not afraid of drinking alcohol anymore. It's not saying, oh, you should put yourself in environments where there's alcohol present so you can face your fears, because the chance of relapse is much higher, and that's not suggested. But that fear is saying, hey, it's a good idea to sit with me. Look at that. Let's work through that. Why am I not confident in my healing? Why am I not certain in my choice? Why do I not trust that I'm free of this? How am I still vibrating at the frequency of an addict or an alcoholic, even though I've quit, right? Because if you're truly free and you're no longer an addict and you've redefined your life and who you are and how you are in the world, then there's no fear anymore. So, it's not always a linear process. That being said, I'm launching this group, and fears have come up, but I know that's because whatever happens with this group, it could be a screaming success, it could crash and burn, it could be somewhere in between. It doesn't matter. This is the gift of it, is that I've been growing through it. I've been sitting and looking at these insecurities, looking at these limiting beliefs, and loving myself through it, and being like, this is such a good growth edge for me. Especially because, as for me personally, in the past, I haven't always known how to relate to men. Sometimes it's been hard for me, right? It's been challenging. It's been easier sometimes to relate to women. So that's interesting, right? What an interesting thing that I would start a men's group for that reason. Well, it's the perfect reason, right? And, with time, I've progressively become more at home with men and connected. So it's also natural. That being said, there's still growth edges there. So these things are always bringing us closer to love. Fear is bringing you closer to love, because as you overcome that fear, as you build yourself, as you grow through it, you will be more loving, more joyful, more peaceful, a better human being, 100% of the time. When you fall victim to that fear, or you fall powerless to that fear, and you let it control you, it descends you downward. So we were talking about the nature of the mind to fixate on the fear, and the fear tendency and nature to then control the mind, to then fixate on the fear, to then control the mind, to then, and the snake eating its own tail. This is why the only way out of fear is you have to go beyond the mind. You can't mind your way out of fear. You can't think your way out of fear. You can get a little bit with it. It's good to use the intellect to reflect and bring education and realization. That being said, you can't think your way out of it. You have to go to a higher place than the mind. And what's higher than the mind? Presence, love, consciousness, spirit, soul. So right now, how much are you in your mind? even as you're listening to this? How much are you just in your mind, thinking, thinking, thinking? How aware of your mind are you? Are you aware of your mind right now? And if you are, who is it that's aware of their mind? Who is it that can watch the mind? Who is it that can be conscious of the mind? Right? And when you really, really tap into that place, the mind disappears and ceases to exist. Because there is a higher power than the mind, thank God, and that is God. So, this is the principles that help us to be free from fear. Now, one of the things I wanted to share about conscious versus subconscious fears. Okay, these are very important. There are the fears that are conscious, that which you're aware of, that which you know you're afraid of, that which you are brought, like you feel fear when you encounter them. So for example, maybe a common one could be social anxiety or anxiety in certain social settings or the fear of public speaking. These are all common fears, right? Many people have them. So you are conscious of it because when you're in that setting, you feel the fear. Now there's subconscious mini fears, right? Tiny fears that you're not conscious of until you choose to be, until you navigate it, till you determine it, till you look, right? So an example of this is people who are healthy or not people who are sick and are health oriented. Okay. So what governs them, and I know because I lived this for many years, is fear. But they don't know it. They don't feel it. So a person gets sick. A person gets a diagnosis. A person is suffering from some sort of physical thing. And that's scary. The body's not working the way it's meant to. You know, the suffering of the sickness, the lack of freedom, the whatever, all the stuff, all the side effects of being sick is scary. Facing death is scary, right? And that right there implants a bunch of subconscious fears. So then the choices in relationship to the sickness or the symptoms are governed by that level of consciousness, that fear. Oh, I got to take this. I got to do that. I can't take that. I can't eat this. I got to eat this. Oh, can't do that. Got to do this. All from fear. Rather than from love. And you wonder why you don't get better. Right? Fear is not a healer. Fear will not heal you. It's impossible. Love will heal you. So we must raise our vibration to love and make choices from love, from intuition, from a higher guidance. That will heal you. That will heal your body, and in the process of it, it will grow you into a better person and a more expansive, loving person. And it will support you in such a beautiful way. So what happens is that there's these subconscious beliefs and fears. And they're based on duality, and they're based on opinion. Now what happens is when you tell yourself a belief, if you tell yourself a belief, if you tell yourself a fear, if you tell yourself an opinion enough times, it becomes your reality. And it becomes a fact. And it becomes your truth. And it governs you and controls you. Okay? An opinion is not a fact. A belief is not a fact. One of the great tragedies of our world right now, that's occurring right now, real time, is that there's all these people who have opinions, and they are sharing them as fact, saying this is the truth. And there's very few facts in the universe, right? In fact, some might say there's one fact. There's really only one. There's really only one absolute fact. There's only one absolute truth. And that is God. That is the brilliant presence of consciousness itself, of God, the power of our Creator, the Most High. It's the only real fact, okay? And it destroys opinions. That's why a lot of people don't like it or avoid it or are not interested in it, because they're more interested about their beliefs and opinions than actually fact and truth. Truth can be a bitter medicine. I was with someone the other day and they were saying, like, we were sharing about truth and the true nature of reality and what a difference it would make if we could go back in time and educate our prior selves more fully on the true nature of reality. Because if you look back on all your suffering, suffering is a result of ignorance, and ignorance is a result of not knowing the true nature of reality. That's why the true nature of reality sets us free. That's why all the masters teach it. It's called enlightenment. So we were talking about this, and this person said, oh man, I don't know if I'd want to tell, that old self of mine that, because they had a big ego, and they'd probably use it for some negative thing. And I said, no, that's impossible. And they kind of looked at me. She looked at me, and I said, the truth humbles you. When you come in contact with the truth, with God, with consciousness, it will humble you. And if it hasn't humbled you, it's a good chance it's not the truth. Or you've come in contact with it so many times and you've been humbled so many times, you can just be with it in presence. Okay, so most people don't like to be humbled. Egos tend to not like humility very much. So most people avoid truth in our world. It's unfortunate. It's just the nature of things. So what's happening is people have all these beliefs, all these opinions, and they've become fact. And that fact is now like putting on belief-tinted goggles. Okay? It's like putting on like the rose-tinted goggle metaphor. It's like that, but like a shadow. That's what fear does. It's like, that's what beliefs do. We put these goggles on and they change your perception of the world. And then we project that onto the world and think that that's reality. Fear is not reality. Fear, when you bring fear into reality, which is God, what happens to fear? Right? We talked about this earlier. When you bring fear into the light of God and the light of consciousness, what happens to fear? When you turn on a light in a dark room, what happens to the darkness? So fear is not reality. It wants us to think it's reality. Okay, so it is very convincing. It can be very, very convincing. So there's subconscious and conscious fears, right? So when you are governed by these subconscious fears, it takes some detective work, takes some willingness, takes some courage, some bravery, and it's so worth it. Weed your garden. Weed it. Get out the weeds. Plant something beautiful in the garden of your subconscious. Plant something beautiful in the soil of your mind. So, a few techniques for this. Okay, the first is be present with your fear. Okay, when fear arises, and you can experience it consciously on some level. So you may be feeling it as physical, emotional, mental. When you consciously experience it, sit and witness it. Okay? And try to witness it like the lens of a camera. And I'm going to share a meditation that you can find down below in the description of this podcast, where you can do this meditation. Okay. So I won't share too much more about it. Basically, you want to sit with it, be with it, love it, and then focus on how you want to feel, and then feel that. And then go back to the fear, and then feel how you want to feel. And you go back and forth, and the fear will be reduced and diminished. And you do this enough times, and you'll release it, because what keeps the fear in place is your resistance to it. It's a paradox. You think that pushing it away is going to get rid of it, but it doesn't. It actually pushes it away into your subconscious, and then you start to subconsciously fear a bunch of things, and you don't know why. And then it's much harder to deal with, okay? So, how do you deal with subconscious fears? Awareness. You have to be aware. You have to ask yourself, what is motivating my thought right now? What is motivating my decision right now? Is this from fear? Or is this from love? And there's a good chance you already know how much fear you have in your life, or at least an idea. Like, are you living love right now? Are you really, truly living love? And if you are, then you should know that there's still always going to be fear coming again and again. It's part of life. You're not going to ever fully get rid of it. And if you do, it's called enlightenment, and that's a great place to be. That being said, most of us are a long ways off from that. So it's good to make peace with the fact that fear will come again and again. It's not to try to permanently get rid of it. It's to have the skills and the capacity and the awareness and the presence and the techniques and all the different things to know how to navigate it when it does arise. Okay? That's my hope for you. That's my prayer for you, that you will have the skills, the capacity, the knowledge, the understanding, the presence to navigate whatever fears arise upon the path. May it be so. And so awareness, okay? So as you know, there's going to be fear. So asking yourself, is this coming from fear or love? And if it's coming from fear, what's going on here? Take off the glasses. Okay, don't let it distort your view. Ask yourself, what has become a fact that's not actually real, right? And break it down a little bit. Look at it. Journal about it. Write about it. So there's a really powerful technique that you can do. What you do is you find something that you're, like, let's just say it's a health thing, okay? And you have all these ideas. You're afraid of this, you're afraid of that, you got to take this, you got to take that. And it's all rooted in fear. What you do is you examine those thoughts, and you say, you make, in your journal, you write, let's just say, a good one is like gluten intolerance or some sort of food sensitivity. You write down, I know that, let's just say, I know that gluten makes me sick. Okay, that's become a fact in your life. It is not fact. Then you write down, I believe that gluten makes me sick. Can you feel the difference? Because remember, you think a belief enough times, it becomes knowing it. And once it's known, it becomes fact. And once it's fact, it becomes fixed and stuck. So a belief is malleable. You can change your beliefs. So then you write a new belief under that. You say, I believe that my body can process and digest everything and anything. And then under that, you write, I know that my body can digest and process everything and anything. So you turn that into a positive belief and a positive knowing. And you tell yourself that enough times, and you'll be able to eat many things that you previously didn't know how to, or weren't able to. Very powerful technique. And you do that again and again, as many times as you need to, with as many different things, till that fear no longer controls you. Very powerful technique. Then when you're done, you burn the paper, purify it, release it, It's also helpful to repeat the new positive I know statement. You repeat it a few times out loud. And as you repeat it, notice any kind of resistance, any kind of like, that's not true, I can't do that. And then, okay, attack that, go into that, observe that, witness that, and write that one out. What knowing and belief is holding you back there? So on and so forth. And you keep going through it till it's done. So very helpful technique, very powerful. It will help you release fear. And you get to choose more than you realize. The more you consciously choose, the more power you have in your life. So I'm going to end it at that. It may feel a bit abrupt. However, it feels complete to me. There's a million different techniques. I'm not going to share them all here. This is the work that I do with people. Watch some of my other content. Follow me. And you'll probably catch some other techniques down the road, or sign up for some work, and I'm happy to share more with you. I do coaching, I do mentorship, I do healing work. I also lead groups. So if you join those, if you sign up for different things, you'll be able to learn more and grow more. And I can support you in that, because this podcast can only get you so far. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please share it. Share it with someone who needs this. Share it with someone who's suffering, who's ready to live love. Leave a comment. Hit like. Give some stars. It makes a really big difference. And reach out. I'd love to hear from you how this impacted you. So until next time, sending you all so much love and blessings.